All right, what's going on, sports fans? How's it going? Hopefully, having a great day. Now, want to take a look at the situation that's going on in Baltimore. Lamar Jackson, you know, we've heard a lot of speculation for a few weeks now about what the Ravens want, what Lamar wants, what other teams aren't interested in with Lamar, all that. But now there's an interesting twist to the story, which I do want to talk about for a little bit here. So basically, Lamar Jackson came out and said back on March 2nd, he informed the Ravens he wanted to get traded, put in an official trade request to leave the Ravens. What's interesting about that date is that was prior to the tag deadline, which we know the Ravens put the non exclusive tag on Lamar Jackson, which has led to these series of events where nothing's really happened with him since. Now, with him putting in the trade request, as he went out and talked to teams, which we know he did, he very easily could have informed them. I've told the Ravens I want out. I put in a trade request, so do with that what you may. Yeah, I'm interested. What do you want to do to get me here? Like I said, I'm not saying that's how it necessarily happened, but let's just play it out. Now, if that does happen, it would kind of make sense why the lack of offer sheets to Baltimore. What's caused that? If these teams know Lamar's put in a trade request, what's the rush for them to go, oh, hey Baltimore, well, hey, Lamar, here's an offer sheet. From our prior conversation, we understand Baltimore may not want to match this, so they'll feel uneasy matching it. But we'll have to give up our 2 first-round picks, like this year, next year. But we want you. What team would do that? Especially when the teams that are involved are all top 10 in the draft. A lot of those teams have a lot of holes to fill on their roster. So why give up that positioning this year, top 10, to get Lamar Jackson right now? I think that's a really good question in all of this. Now, looking at the teams involved, I do think some of them are out. I think Carolina, I don't think that's going to happen at this point. They've traded up to number 1. It'd be hard for me to think they traded up to number 1 to now give that pick away to get Lamar Jackson. If that was the case, they could have stayed at, were they 10? What was, or like 12, something like that. 9. I believe the Panthers were 9, and they moved up to 1. They could have just stayed at 9, given that to the Ravens, gotten Lamar. So clearly, by them moving up to 1, there's a quarterback they have in mind. I'm assuming it's CJ Stroud, maybe it's Bryce Young, but clearly they've targeted those 2. They'll take that. The Colts sitting at 4, that seems like a logical spot. Because at 4, you assume the Colts are taking a quarterback after they went through these previous years with the Phillip Rivers, the Carson Wentz, Matt Ryan experiments that failed miserably. I'm assuming new coaching, they're going with a young guy, move on. But if Lamar could be had for the number 4 pick this year, then what the Colts would hopefully think would be number, 20-something next year. Fine. Like I said, the issue with that would be, why not negotiate a trade with Baltimore that's not surrounded around the tag? That way, maybe you change up the draft pick compensation, where now you're not giving up, your first next year. Maybe you can negotiate where it's like number 4. Next year's number, I don't know, like 3rd round pick. and fourth round pick or something for Lamar. And toss a player in as well. Maybe a young quarterback you have on your roster. So maybe that's what's going on. Baltimore and these teams are talking to see if they can agree on a trade first. Then we see the Ravens like rescind the tag. Then Lamar gets moved. Maybe that could be the order of events that's about to happen. Even in that case, I feel like that probably happens after the draft. These teams absolutely want to make sure with their draft they hit on the players that they need to. They reassess their roster. Maybe there's some guys who they draft that allows them to cut bait with some veterans on the roster who might be tying up some money. They can do that. Now all of a sudden, you have the necessary space to fit in Lamar, because if you get him on a new deal, you're assuming it's in the $45 million range. So that's why I think there is no rush to this whole process. Now, for Ravens fans, I think they will probably get antsy at that because, Ravens fans want this. Like, if Lamar's coming back, do it now. Try to salvage free agency. Right now, their biggest move in free agency is like signing Nelson Aguilar. That's not good enough. If he's going to go, get it done now. Let's find out what our draft compensation is going to be. The draft is in a month. So now we go into draft mode. We can reset our draft board. You assume one of the picks would have to be used on a quarterback. You kind of see who might be available certain rounds. I keep throwing out the name Hendon Hooker. If that's a guy you want to target, you see where you can maybe get him. If you have to move around the draft to do that, all that. So I think this is something that gets resolved after the draft, unfortunately. But like I said, I think the Ravens would like to push it before. But if it does happen before, trust me, the tag will not apply in that situation. Because there's no way any of these teams are doing that based off the parameters of the tag before the draft. I don't see it. So that's what I think happens. Once again, the Ravens and Team X come up with a trade for Lamar. Probably like a day or so after those two agree on it, you might hear some rumor about it, but then you'll see the Ravens rescind the tag. Yeah. So rescind the tag. Maybe even, no, I don't think they would do that. I was thinking like a sign and trade type of thing. That's more of an NBA thing. So I guess the NFL rescind the tag, make the deal, then the new team will know contract-wise what they want Lamar at. Because assuming that they and Lamar have talked about parameters like that already, then we hear about a Lamar contract extension on the new team. And we finally get ready for the following season. So for right now, I think the holding pattern continues. It's just now with the interesting nugget that Lamar put in a trade request. I feel like the Ravens fans who might have been optimistic about Lamar somehow going back to Baltimore after all this, I feel like that probably takes a hit to that idea. I mean, it's the NFL. Anything can happen, so I'm not going to say it's like 100% that Lamar's gone. Maybe it's 93% that he's gone. Also, Ravens fans, let me know. How would you feel if after all of this, Lamar ends up back in Baltimore, but because of how long it took, you missed out on so many free agents you might have wanted to target? We actually learned today Calais Campbell, who Baltimore released, signed with the Atlanta Falcons. Kind of interesting. What now? Something I just thought about. Once again, I don't know the Ravens team like that, but what if Calais Campbell was a friend to Lamar? Atlanta goes and gets him. Maybe Calais Campbell tells Arthur Blank, look, Lamar told me he'd like to play down here. I mean, I know the report talking about the Falcons are out, Patriots are out on Lamar. I'm not buying any of that. I see that every day. I'm not buying it. But now maybe that pushes Atlanta to the number one spot in terms of getting Lamar. I mean, the Falcons have the number 8 pick. Like I said, Atlanta has a lot of holes on that roster, so they are definitely a team that would want to wait till after the draft to do it. So I'd say pay attention to Atlanta's draft. You know, they have Drake London at wide receiver. They have Pitts at tight end, who was hurt a lot of last season, but they brought in Jonnu Smith to be the tight end, offsetting Kyle Pitts. They brought in Mac Hollins at wide receiver. So don't be surprised if, you know, the Falcons take a wide receiver, maybe not necessarily with the 8th pick, but I could see them going that route in the 2nd round as a way to kind of entice them. Well, not entice them, because like I said, if they're interested in him, they don't really need to entice him at this point, but to kind of shape the roster a little bit around Lamar. So I would say pay attention to Atlanta there. Because I said before, Atlanta should be in on him. They should be at the front of the line for him. Because yes, they came out and said Desmond Ritter's their starting quarterback. Please. Lamar Jackson's a clear upgrade over Desmond Ridder. Let's not fool ourselves. So you bring Lamar to Atlanta, he becomes the biggest star in Atlanta. I've said this before. Sorry, Trae Young. Lamar Jackson would have the city on lock. It's a division that's in flux right now. I've liked what the Falcons have done in free agency, to be honest with you. If they were to cap it off, bringing Lamar in off of a good draft, why couldn't the Falcons win the division next year? No. We'll definitely have to see where it goes. Like I said, yes, I mentioned the Patriots quickly, but we've seen the thing about Meek Milton and Robert Kraft. Lamar wants to be in New England. Then I think Robert Kraft said it's up to Bill Belichick. I'm still skeptical on Lamar being in New England, but that's still out there. I still think watch Washington and Atlanta. I'll probably go Atlanta 1, Washington 2. Especially if Washington gets sold, the new owners want to make a big splash. Lamar Jackson would be the biggest splash they could make. And then 3, I'd say the Colts, because it makes too much sense. But I feel like the Ravens would want to move him to the NFC. So that's why I feel like Washington and Atlanta are probably the 2 top landing spots right now. But yeah, let me know what you think. Do you think, the trade request was maybe to push the Ravens' hand? Lamar just ends up back there. Do you think the Falcons signing Calais Campbell is a sign that maybe they're in on Lamar? Where do you have Lamar going? Do you think he starts next season under center for the Baltimore Ravens, or he's in a new city playing somewhere else? Let me know that down in the comment section. Really appreciate you all tuning in. Hopefully you enjoyed the episode, and if you did, you know what you need to do. Hit the like button, subscribe, share. Really appreciate it. But as I always say, be safe, God bless, and I'll catch you in the next episode. All right, enjoy the rest of your day.